Ever wondered how Somali pirates meet their match on the high seas? Well, it's not just a story from the history books. It's a real-world problem with deep roots. Poverty, instability, and desperation drive pirates to take up arms against massive cargo ships and luxury yachts. But it's not all a crazy adventure. It's a serious issue with global consequences. From the collapse of governments to the rise of organized crime, Somali piracy has shaken the maritime world. Modern piracy is more than just old stories of sea robbers. It's a clear sign of bigger global issues. Today's pirates come from places where poverty and instability are part of everyday life, and these problems have gotten even worse because of recent health crises. This isn't just happening in one spot, but across several key maritime areas like the Red Sea, Indian Ocean, Gulf of Guinea, and the waters near Somalia and the Horn of Africa. Today's pirates are nothing like the characters from storybooks that we used to read about. They're heavily armed, using fast boats, guns, and rocket-propelled grenades, targeting everything from massive cargo ships to private yachts. The reasons behind turning to piracy are rooted in economic desperation. In many pirate-infested regions, there are hardly any jobs, and the situation has been made tougher by a slowdown in global trade and the impacts of the pandemic. These factors push people towards piracy as a means of survival. This complex issue shows that piracy is more than just a security threat. It's a reflection of deeper economic and social problems that need addressing beyond just sending in Navy ships. Somali piracy, in particular, presents an example of how complex and serious the issue can be, impacting not just local regions, but international trade and security. The roots of Somali piracy stretch back to the early 1990s, following the collapse of Somalia's government. This led to widespread poverty, lawlessness, and violence, pushing many towards piracy as a desperate means of survival. Initially, Somali piracy was a local response to the illegal fishing by foreign vessels that depleted the resources needed by local communities. However, what started as a means of defending local waters evolved into organized crime driven by the potential for large ransom payouts. Pirates came back near Somalia in 2012, even with lots of countries trying to stop them. This shows that the real problems like illegal fishing and lack of jobs were still there. The comeback reminds us that while countries were good at stopping pirate attacks, they didn't do much to stop the reasons why pirates became pirates in the first place. Organizations like the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime highlight the ongoing challenges and the need for comprehensive strategies that address both the symptoms and sources of piracy. Somali piracy did not emerge in a vacuum, but is a product of intricate socio-economic and political unrest. The historical roots of piracy in Somalia are traced back to the collapse of the Somali government in 1991, which led to widespread lawlessness and poverty. The absence of effective governance following the Somali Civil War contributed to the rise of piracy. The collapse of the central government in 1991 left Somalia without the legal and administrative mechanisms necessary to protect its territorial integrity and economic resources. This power vacuum not only facilitated unlawful exploitation of its marine resources by foreign vessels, but also deprived the local fishermen of their traditional livelihoods, pushing many towards piracy as a means of survival. Foreign fishing vessels started exploiting Somalia's rich marine resources, often using destructive fishing techniques like bottom trawling, which damaged the marine environment and depleted fish stocks, crucial for the local communities. These activities were not effectively checked due to the absence of a functional Somali state capable of enforcing maritime laws. The economic desperation fueled by these infringements propelled many local fishermen to take up arms to defend their waters, initially seeing themselves as protectors of their livelihood. What started as community-led defensive measures against illegal fishing gradually evolved into more organized and profit-driven piracy. Over time, local fishermen turned pirates began targeting not just illegal fishing vessels, but also commercial shipping traversing the Gulf of Aden, one of the world's busiest maritime routes. The strategic importance of these waters, coupled with the high-value targets passing through, made piracy an increasingly lucrative enterprise. This transition was further facilitated by the lack of international focus on the root causes of piracy. While international naval forces were deployed to counter pirate attacks, little was done to address the fundamental socio-economic issues driving the phenomenon. This oversight allowed piracy to grow into a well-organized industry, complete with financiers, negotiators, and a complex logistical network. The clan-based social structure in Somalia also played a critical role in the escalation of piracy. Warlords and clan leaders seeking new sources of revenue often sponsored pirate operations, providing resources and protection in return for a share of the ransom money. The way people supported each other in the community made piracy a big part of how things worked there. This made it really tough to stop piracy for good. The international community's response, characterized by military patrols and anti-piracy measures, often failed to consider the socio-economic motivations behind piracy. This approach, while reducing incidents of piracy, did not offer sustainable solutions or address the humanitarian crisis in Somalia. Effective counter-piracy strategies require a holistic approach that combines maritime security efforts with initiatives aimed at economic development and governance reform in Somalia. You can say that the collapse of the Somali state, the unchecked exploitation of its marine resources, and the subsequent economic deprivation of its coastal communities created conditions ripe for the emergence of piracy. Understanding these underlying causes is very important for developing effective strategies to combat piracy, ensuring that efforts not only secure maritime routes, but also promote stability and economic opportunities for the Somali people. The peak of Somali piracy. Somali piracy was at its highest between 2008 and 2012. During this time, pirate attacks happened a lot more often, and they became more skilled at what they were doing. During this period, pirates not only expanded their operational reach, but also refined their tactics and targeting strategies, leading to substantial global repercussions and economic ramifications. Initially, Somali pirates primarily targeted fishing boats and small cargo vessels within a few dozen nautical miles off Somalia's coastline. However, as their operations grew more sophisticated, they began to venture farther into international waters, extending their reach across the Gulf of Aden and into the Indian Ocean. This shift was facilitated by the use of motherships, larger vessels that could carry smaller, faster skiffs used in attacks. These motherships enabled pirates to operate over vast distances and in deeper waters, significantly broadening their range of targets. Pirates increasingly focused on high-value targets, including oil tankers, bulk carriers, and container ships. These vessels often carried valuable cargo and could yield substantial ransoms. As time passed, pirates got smarter with their moves. They started using modern stuff like GPS, satellite phones, and really powerful weapons like automatic guns and rockets. Their usual plan was to zoom up to a ship in speedboats, climb aboard using ladders, and then grab the crew to ask for money in exchange for their safety. Global repercussions. One of the most famous pirate attacks was when the MV Fana was taken in September 2008. This Ukrainian ship had military stuff on board, like tanks and bullets, which made it a big deal. The pirates asked for and got $3.2 million to let the ship and its crew go. This showed how much money pirates could make from these kinds of attacks. Another significant incident was the hijacking of the MV Maersk, Alabama, in April 2009, the first successful pirate seizure of a ship registered under the American flag since the early 19th century. The incident gained international fame, partly due to the dramatic rescue of the ship's captain, Richard Phillips, by U.S. Navy SEALs. This event notably increased the international awareness of the piracy problem, leading to heightened naval patrols in the region. These high-profile attacks had several global repercussions. They prompted an international naval response, including the establishment of multinational coalitions such as Combined Task Force 151, the European Union's Operation Atalanta, and NATO's Operation Ocean Shield. These efforts aimed to protect critical shipping lanes and deter further pirate activities. Other than that, the surge in piracy led to increased shipping costs, including higher insurance premiums, which affected global trade routes and prompted some ships to take longer, more expensive routes to avoid high-risk areas. Ransom operations. The primary economic incentive for Somali piracy was ransom payments.
This is our 27th day in captivity. So far, we have been provided with adequate food and water and facilities.
The potential for large payouts provided a significant lure for impoverished Somalis, especially given the lack of viable economic alternatives. Ransom payments vary widely, but reports suggest that they could range from a few $100,000 to several $1 million per incident. Between 2005 and 2012, pirates are estimated to have received between $339 million and $413 million in ransoms, according to a World Bank report. The ransom operations involved complex negotiations, typically handled by professional negotiators based in London, Dubai, or Nairobi. It's like money heist in real life. The negotiations could last for months, during which the safety of hostages and the security of the ship remained at risk. The distribution of ransom money was also complex, with significant portions going to financiers who backed the piracy operations, local warlords who provided protection, and the pirates themselves. International response. The rise of Somali piracy prompted a significant international response involving multinational naval efforts and legal actions aimed at curbing the threats to global maritime security. Key initiatives included the establishment of combined task forces and European Union naval operations. Combined Task Force 150, CTF 150. After terrorist attacks and the growing problem of piracy, a bunch of countries got together to form Combined Task Force 150. It's like a team made up of different countries, and they take turns leading the group. This collaborative effort was born out of a pressing need to counter the dual threats posed by terrorism and piracy in key maritime regions. Spanning an expansive area of operation, CTF 150's jurisdiction blankets vital waterways including the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, Indian Ocean, and the Gulf of Oman. In these important areas, the task force works to stop piracy and robbery at sea. They do this to keep maritime trade safe and protect the people sailing through these dangerous waters. CTF 150 is like a guard for the main routes ships use for trade around the world. They help to keep these routes safe from dangers on the sea. They do this by working together with other navies and planning where to patrol and when to be there. By the end of the decade, CTF 150's hard work paid off. They managed to reduce the number of pirate attacks by a lot. This showed how working together with other countries can make a big difference in keeping the seas safe. It also showed how important it is for countries to cooperate to fight against sea threats. European Union Naval Force. EU NAVFOR, Operation Atalanta. Launched in December 2008, Operation Atalanta's main mission is to protect vessels of the World Food Programme delivering food aid to displaced populations in Somalia. In addition to deterring piracy and armed robbery in the Western Indian Ocean and Gulf of Aden. The operation has been highly effective in its escort missions, significantly decreasing piracy incidents by providing armed escorts and proactive surveillance. Now, if you're wondering, were these operations successful? These operations have seen numerous successes, including the rescue of hostages and the capture of pirates. For example, the EU NAVFOR has been involved in operations such as the rescue of the MV Monte Cristo in 2011 and the capture of pirate action groups. Other than that, CTF 150 has coordinated with other forces to disrupt piracy operations and seize pirate vessels. However, while the naval presence has provided short-term security for commercial vessels, it has not entirely eliminated the threat. Pirates have occasionally managed to adapt their strategies, highlighting the need for continued vigilance and adaptive tactics by international forces. The legal dimension of the international response has involved both regional and international legal actions, including landmark piracy trials which have had significant impacts. Trial and sentencing. One big event was when Somali pirates got sentenced in the United States for taking over the Maersk Alabama ship in 2009. The leader, Abduwali Muse, got 33 years in prison. This was a big deal in the fight against piracy, legal challenges and developments. Places like the Seychelles and Kenya have held trials for suspected pirates. Many times these trials end with the pirates being found guilty. This helps stop others from becoming pirates. But sometimes there are problems with things like who has the right to judge them and how much proof is needed, which can make the trials harder. International legal cooperation. The United Nations Security Council has played a role by sanctioning resolutions that support the prosecution of suspected pirates and the implementation of law enforcement measures at sea. These legal frameworks have helped streamline international efforts and facilitated the transfer of suspected pirates to regional countries for prosecution. Impact of anti-piracy measures. The combined naval and legal responses have led to a significant reduction in piracy incidents since their peak in 2011. Insurance costs for passage through the Gulf of Aden have decreased, and shipping companies are gradually returning to shorter shipping routes, reducing costs and increasing efficiency. However, the long-term success of anti-piracy measures relies not only on deterring pirates, but also on stabilizing Somalia. This involves addressing the underlying socio-economic issues that contribute to piracy, such as unemployment, lack of effective governance, and foreign illegal fishing, which are beyond the scope of naval and legal measures alone. Now, all of this chaos had lots of impacts too. Direct and indirect costs on global trade. The economic repercussions of Somali piracy have been profound, particularly at the height of its activities between 2008 and 2012. Direct costs include ransoms paid, which peaked at millions of dollars per hijacked vessel, significantly increasing the operational costs of maritime businesses. These ransom payments, while enriching pirates, spurred higher insurance premiums for shipping companies. Insurance costs, particularly for kidnap and ransom policies, soared as vessels entering the high-risk area, HRA, had to be insured at higher rates due to the perceived risk. Indirect costs were even more substantial. Shipping companies were forced to reroute their vessels around the Cape of Good Hope, avoiding the Suez Canal route, which significantly increased travel time and fuel consumption, thus raising the cost of goods and commodities. The increase in shipping costs had a cascading effect on global trade, affecting commodity prices and economic activities in different parts of the world. Unintended consequences of anti-piracy measures. The international response to piracy, while effective in reducing pirate attacks, also had unintended consequences. The heavy presence of international naval forces disrupted local fishing activities, as local fishermen often found themselves being mistaken for pirates. This not only impacted their livelihood, but also heightened tensions between local communities and international forces. Other than that, the focus on military and security responses often overshadowed the need for addressing the root causes of piracy, such as poverty, unemployment, and the lack of effective governance in Somalia. While piracy decreased, the underlying socio-economic problems in the region persisted, leaving the door open for the potential resurgence of maritime crimes or other forms of organized crime. The use of armed guards on ships, an anti-piracy measure that became popular during the piracy crisis, also led to concerns about the escalation of violence at sea. Incidents of shootings involving private security guards raised questions about accountability and the rules of engagement in international waters, highlighting the complex legal and ethical dimensions of using armed personnel on civilian vessels. Current situation and future outlook. As of the latest data, piracy off the coast of Somalia has seen a significant decline. This decrease in incidents is largely attributed to the concerted efforts of international naval forces and the implementation of better security measures aboard vessels traveling through the region. In January 2023, a significant milestone was achieved when the International Maritime Bureau, IMB, officially removed the Indian Ocean's High Risk Area, HRA designation. This removal signals a notable improvement in the security landscape, reflecting the reduced risk of pirate attacks in the area that once witnessed rampant piracy. The removal of the high-risk area designation by the IMB is a pivotal development for maritime security. This change is expected to reduce the cost of shipping insurance for vessels operating in the Indian Ocean, as the perceived risk of pirate attacks has diminished. It also suggests a shift towards a more stable and secure maritime environment, encouraging shipping companies to revert to shorter and more economical shipping routes previously avoided due to piracy threats. Other than that, the removal of the HRA designation also requires continuous vigilance and sustained anti-piracy measures. Maritime security experts caution that the capability of Somali pirates to carry out attacks remains, albeit reduced. The need for ongoing international naval presence and the maintenance of robust security protocols on commercial vessels continue to be crucial in preventing a resurgence of piracy. The long-term effects of the current trends in Somali piracy are complex. On the one hand, the successful reduction in pirate activities has contributed to stabilizing the region's maritime trade routes. However, on the other hand, the fundamental issues that initially drove many to piracy, such as poverty, lack of employment opportunities, and political instability, persist in Somalia. There is a potential risk of piracy resurgence if these root causes are not adequately addressed. The economic hardships and the limited effectiveness of the Somali government in providing services and security could push disenfranchised individuals back towards unlawful activities at sea. Other than that, the ongoing conflict and the presence of militant groups in Somalia could further complicate the security landscape. So you can say that while the current situation has improved, the future outlook requires a balanced approach that combines security measures with socio-economic development in Somalia. International efforts should not only focus on deterring piracy through naval patrols and onboard security, but also on supporting the Somali government and local communities to build a sustainable and peaceful livelihood that does not depend on maritime crime. This dual approach will be essential in ensuring that the decline in piracy is durable and that the maritime trade routes off the coast of Somalia remain safe for international shipping. Well, that was a lot of information. Somali piracy isn't just a tale of swashbuckling adventurers, it's a complex issue intertwined with poverty, instability, and global trade. From the collapse of the Somali government to the rise of pirate operations and the international response, we've covered a lot of ground. While piracy off the coast of Somalia has declined, the underlying issues remain. To ensure a lasting solution, we need a comprehensive approach that addresses both the security and socio-economic aspects of the problem. Thanks for watching this video and getting into the world of Somali piracy with us. If you found this exploration informative, be sure to share it with others who might also be interested. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights into global issues like this one. And before you go, what aspects of the international response to Somali piracy do you think have been most effective, and what further actions do you believe are necessary to address the root causes of piracy in the region?